I thought I could have a happy life with my loved one, but my brother, not by blood, the son of the adopted family who adopted me, had an obsession with me. He destroyed my first love, later drugged me, and then married me. He turned me from someone who was energetic and happy into someone who is broken and destroyed. Please subscribe for more exciting videos like this. My name is Elena, and I was a happy child, loved by everyone in the orphanage. I remember the day I became someone's daughter. I was 10 years old, and I was happy. That was the thing about me that everyone noticed first. I was happy. Not the fake kind of happy that orphan children learn to perform for visiting families, but real happy. The kind that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me and spilled out in laughter. Everyone at the orphanage loved me. The caretakers said I was like sunshine in a gray room. The other children gathered around me when I told my stories, their eyes wide, their worries forgotten for a little while. I was loud and cheerful, and I made friends everywhere I went, because I had decided a long time ago that if no one was going to come along and choose me, I would choose myself. I would be my own family. I would be enough. But then they walked in. A family. A real family. Vivian had honey-warm eyes and a soft voice that made me feel safe just hearing it. Richard stood tall and strong, but his smile was gentle. And Damien was 14, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes like storm clouds. He looked bored at first, like he didn't want to be there, like he had better things to do than visit an orphanage with his parents. Then he saw me. I was sitting on the floor in the corner of the common room, surrounded by children who had gathered to hear my latest story. I was telling them about a dragon who was actually very friendly once you got to know him, and I was using my hands to show how big the dragon's wings were, and everyone was laughing because I was making the dragon's voice very silly. When I noticed the family standing in the doorway, I didn't stop my story. I just looked up, caught Damien's eyes, and smiled. I said hi, smiling at him. He looked flustered, turning his head away. Then the caretaker came, calling me and telling me to come to the headroom. I went there along with the caretaker. There, she told me this family wanted to adopt me. Vivian crouched down and said, "Would you like to come with us?" I thought for a second, then said, "If you let me call you Mom, then I would." She laughed and said, "Yes, of course. I always wanted a daughter like you." Then Richard said, "I will be your dad from now on, and this is our son. You should call him brother." I looked at him and said, "Hi, brother." I climbed into their car that day with nothing but a small bag of clothes and a heart full of hope. I didn't know that I was also carrying something else with me, something that would grow in the dark, something that would one day consume us all. The first thing I did when we got to their house was run through every room with my arms outstretched like airplane wings. The house was huge, bigger than anything I had ever imagined, with tall windows and soft carpets and a kitchen that smelled like bread. Vivian laughed and chased after me, and Richard stood in the doorway smiling, and Damien watched from the stairs with his hands in his pockets. "Brother," I shouted, running up to him. "Brother, can you show me your room? Brother, do you have toys? Brother, can we play?" He didn't smile, but he nodded, and he took me to his room, and he showed me his collection of model airplanes, and when I asked 1,000 questions about each one, he answered every single one. That was the beginning. For years, Damien was my brother in every way that mattered. He taught me to ride a bike, running alongside me until his lungs burned, catching me every time I wobbled. He helped me with homework when numbers made me want to scream, even when I threw my pencil across the room and declared that math was stupid and mean and I hated it. He read me bedtime stories when Vivian was tired, doing different voices for each character until I was breathless with laughter. He spoiled me, bought me anything I pointed at, took me anywhere I wanted to go, threatened any boy who looked at me wrong. I thought that was love. I thought that was what brothers did. I never noticed the way his gaze would linger a moment too long. I never noticed the way his jaw would tighten when I hugged my friend. I never noticed the way his eyes would follow me across a room like he was memorizing my every move. Because to me, he was simply my brother, my safe place, my family. When I was 15, I started to notice that Damien looked at me differently than other brothers looked at their sisters. But I told myself I was imagining things. He must be protective of me since I'm his only sister, that's what I thought, and brushed it off. When I was 17, I fell in love. Caleb lived next door. He had kind eyes and a gentle laugh, and when he handed me flowers at my high school graduation and told me he wanted to go out with me once I turned 18, I blushed so hard I thought my face would catch fire. He liked me back. He actually liked me back. For the first time in my life, I let myself dream about something beyond the family I had been given. I dreamed about a family of my own, children of my own, a love that was chosen rather than given by circumstance. I didn't notice Damien watching from the window when we talked at the gate or when he dropped me off after school. I didn't notice the phone calls he made late at night. I didn't notice anything until Caleb's family lost everything overnight, bankrupted, destroyed, their name dragged through the mud. Caleb stood at the airport with a ticket in his hand and tears in his eyes, telling me he had nothing left to offer me. I chased him. I ran through the terminal, my heart pounding, my voice breaking, and I told him I loved him. I would wait for him. I didn't care about money or status or any of it. He held my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away my tears, and he said, "Once I become someone who can care for you, I'll come back. But don't wait for me, Elena. Please. Don't wait. I was so stubborn that I told him no, I wouldn't care. Even if he left, he needed to stay in contact with me. He promised he would become someone who could protect me and take care of me. Then he left, and I waited anyway. I waited for him for half of my university. At first, when I called him crying, saying I missed him, he would soothe me to sleep, but later he started ignoring my calls and my texts. I waited another half of my university. I called and texted and left voicemails that he never returned. And then I learned that he had started a business, that he was successful, that there was someone beside him, a woman with sleek hair and a confident smile who had stood by him when he had nothing. When I finally reached him, his voice was cold, so cold I barely recognized him. She stood with me when no one did, he said. When I had nothing. I know you waited for me, but I love her. She was my everything. Let's think of it as silly childhood love. I believed him. I believed that I had been replaced, that my love hadn't been enough, that he had moved on while I was still drowning in memories of his smile. I didn't know that Damen had arranged everything the woman beside him, the success of his business. I came back home crying, and Damen held me while I sobbed. I thought he was being a good brother. I thought he was comforting me. I didn't see the satisfaction flickering behind his eyes. Mom and Dad said it was okay, that it's not like he was the only man in the world, and how dare he play with their daughter's heart. When I said I wanted to go abroad for higher study, Mom and Dad thought about it and said okay, but I had to return after completing my study. Damen let me go. He said it would be good for me, that I needed space to heal. I thought he was being kind. Instead, I found Mateo. He was in the same year as me, but in a different department. It happened in a library. He had blue eyes like the ocean and a quiet way of speaking that made me want to lean closer. We reached for the same book. Our hands touched, and he smiled at me like I was the only person in the room. He was straightforward. The first thing he said to me was, "You are so beautiful, and when you smile, I want to look at you longer." He might have been a bit flirty, but I liked his outgoing personality, and soon we became friends. He would save a seat at my favorite spot beside the window in the library. He would bring me desserts to my dorm, drag me to the cafeteria when I wanted to skip lunch. We took a year to fall in love. Slow, steady, patient. Mateo never pushed me, never demanded anything from me. He simply showed up, day after day, with his gentle hands and steady heart, and he waited for me to be ready. When he proposed, I said yes without hesitation, because for the first time in years, I believed maybe this was God's plan for me. I came home after 2 years, and I wasn't alone. I showed up with Mateo, wanting to introduce my parents to him. Vivian cried happy tears and pulled Mateo into a hug before she even said hello. Richard shook his hand with genuine warmth and welcomed him to the family like he had always belonged. And Damen smiled and hugged me and called me his little sister, and I thought everything was finally okay. I didn't see the fire burning behind his eyes. His fingers clutched tightly. Our parents were so happy for us. They started planning the engagement immediately, and at the same time, they arranged one for Damen to a girl he had been engaged to at birth, someone from a wealthy family, a proper match. I was happy for him. I thought he deserved someone who would love him. I even went to him, smiling, and asked him to support my engagement because he was my brother and I wanted him to be part of my happiness. "Brother, you have to support me," I said, grinning the way I always did at him. "I need my big brother's blessing." His smile didn't reach his eyes, but he nodded, and he said, "Of course, Elena. I will always support you." That was my mistake. The night before our engagement announcement, I remember feeling thirsty. So thirsty. I remember drinking some water from the glass on my nightstand, the one someone had left there for me, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it until the world started to spin, until my limbs felt heavy and wrong, until Damien's face was hovering over mine, and I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but exist in the fog that had swallowed me whole. I felt so thirsty I clung to him. My whole body felt strange. I don't remember that night. I don't remember what he did to me. I only remember waking up to the sound of something shattering in the room, the sounds of arguing. The light was too bright. My body hurt in ways I didn't understand. And Damen was beside me, and our parents were in the doorway, and Mateo was standing there with his blue eyes shattered like glass. And I didn't understand what was happening until I saw the look on Vivian's face: horror, disbelief, grief, and I looked down at myself, at the sheets tangled around me, at the state of my clothes, and I knew. I knew what it meant lying naked on a bed, not to mention with my brother. Damen was talking to Dad. They were arguing. He was shielding me as he spoke. Damen spoke. "She was drugged," he said, his voice steady and false. "She had no choice. Someone must have done this to her. She's innocent." He was defending me. He was pretending to be my brother. And I couldn't even speak because I was too busy trying not to throw up, trying not to scream, trying not to shatter into a million pieces on that bed. Mateo crossed the room and knelt beside me. Even though he had just walked in and seen something no lover should ever have to see, he took my hands and said, "It's okay. You were drugged. I will get past this. You are my love. I love you so much. This changes nothing." But it changed everything. I couldn't look at him without seeing the pity in his eyes. I couldn't let him touch me without remembering whose hands had been on me the night before. I loved him so much it hurt, but I couldn't stay with him. Every time he looked at me, I saw the reflection of what had been done to me, and I couldn't bear it. I couldn't look into his eyes and remember that devastating look he had when he saw me in bed with my brother. So I broke up with him. I told him I couldn't do this. It was too much. I watched his heart break, and I broke my own heart right along with his, and I thought that was the worst pain I would ever feel. I was wrong. The whole scene became public. Everyone knew. The whispers followed me everywhere, at the grocery store, on the street, in the few places I still tried to find peace. Vivian and Richard sat me down and told me that to protect the family's reputation, to avoid a scandal that would destroy us all, they had arranged for me to marry Damen. Since I was adopted, they said. Since there was no blood relation. Since what was done was already done. I refused. I begged. I told them I couldn't see Damen that way, that he was my brother, that I had no feelings for him and never would. I went to Damen himself, desperate, and I said, "Don't accept this engagement. I don't have feelings for you. I can't see you like that. Please, brother, please talk to our parents for me." He got furious. I had never seen him truly furious before, not like this. His eyes went dark, his jaw clenched, and before I could run, he pinned me against the wall in his study. I begged him to stop. I told him he was my brother. I told him I couldn't. He didn't listen. He told me I belonged to him, my love, my body, everything about me was his, and he claimed me right there on the floor of his study while I sobbed and pleaded, and he ignored every word. He made me remember everything that happened that night. He told me how I clung to him, begging for more, how I melted beneath him, how I clung to him like he was my salvation. Afterwards, I scrambled to my room and locked the door. I stood in the shower for hours, scrubbing my skin until it was raw and bleeding, trying to wash away the feeling of his hands, his mouth, his voice telling me I was his. I didn't remember the night I was drugged, but I remembered this night. I remembered every single second of it. I hated it. I hated this, doing this not with the person I love, not with anyone, but with Damen, whom I had called brother for more than a decade. I felt disgusted. I crawled into bed and I didn't come out for days. I spent the rest of the week in my room, crying and avoiding everyone. When Vivian finally broke into my room to check on me, she asked why I was ignoring everyone. I told her I wanted to leave permanently, to another city, another country, anywhere that wasn't here, and that I would not marry Damen. I didn't tell her what happened in the study. I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. I just cried and cried until there was nothing left, and she cried with me, and Richard stood in the doorway with his face like stone. They accepted my decision because they loved me like their own daughter. They didn't know the full truth, and I couldn't bear to tell them. They agreed to let me leave. They booked me a ticket. They promised to support me. I thought I was free. At the airport, I was checking in my bags when hands closed around my arm, tight, unyielding, familiar. Damen pulled me away from the counter, past security, past everyone who might have helped me, and before I could scream, I was in a car, and then I was in a villa I had never seen before, and the door was locked from the outside. He kept me there for days. He brought me food I couldn't eat. He sat across from me and begged me to look at him. He confessed everything, that he had loved me since we were kids, that he was sorry for what he did in the study, that he would do anything if I would just look at him once, just once, with something other than fear. "Please, Elena," he said, his voice breaking. "Just look at me. Just once. I love you. I've loved you since we were children. Please." I cried. I begged. I shouted that I only saw him as a brother, that I could never love him that way, that he was my brother and I was his sister, and I needed him to let me go. "I only see you as my brother," I screamed. "I will never love you like that. Let me go." When I tried to flee, his face crumbled. Then it hardened. He grabbed me, his hands shooting to my waist, locking me in a vice grip. I fought and thrashed, trying to break free, and in my struggle to escape, I missed a step and fell. I remember the look on his face when I fell, how panicked he was when I was drifting away, losing consciousness. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Vivian was crying beside me, her face swollen and red. Richard stood by the window, his face haggard, looking older than I had ever seen him. And Damen was there too, sitting in a chair beside my bed, his eyes red-rimmed and his hands shaking, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Then they told me I was a month pregnant. Everything collapsed inside me. My face lost all color. I was pale as a ghost, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how this could be happening. A baby. A baby conceived from someone I had called my brother for half my life. A baby that existed because he had taken something from me that I never offered. Vivian took my hand, tears streaming down her face, and said, "If you don't want this baby, we will support you. You can have an abortion. We won't force you." "Mom," Damen shouted. But Richard turned to him, his voice like thunder. "Enough. If she wants to have the baby, she can. If she doesn't, she won't. And you need to be punished according to family law. You locked her up when she was trying to leave. You cannot do that to her." They punished him with 100 lashes. His own father delivered every single one. I heard Damen scream from down the hall, and a part of me, the part that still remembered the brother who taught me to ride a bike, who read me bedtime story, who held me when I cried, felt something like grief. But mostly, I felt empty. Even after the lashes, Damen didn't agree to let me go. He wanted me to have the baby. He wanted me to stay. At first, I wanted to abort and leave. I made the appointment. I told Vivian I was going to do it, but I couldn't stop thinking about the life inside me, small, innocent, blameless for how it was created, and I was torn. How could I end a baby's life because of what we had done? How was that fair to this child who had never asked to exist? Then I overheard something that changed everything. I was walking past Vivian and Richard's room late one night, unable to sleep, when I heard Vivian sobbing. "What do we do?" she cried. "One is our own son. Even if we punish him, he is dead set on her. And I don't like the idea of both of them marrying, but look at her, she had loved someone, and now she is pregnant with someone she called her brother. I can't look at her like this either. We raised both of them. We loved both of them. And now our family is tearing itself apart." I stood there in the hallway, pressing my hand against my mouth, and I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't abort this baby and leave. How could I leave this family torn apart? How could I watch Vivian and Richard suffer while their son destroyed himself over me? How could I walk away knowing that my departure would shatter all of them? So I accepted. I told them I was not aborting. I saw the relief flood Vivian's face, saw Richard's shoulders sag with something that might have been gratitude or grief or both. I accepted the marriage. We held the ceremony within a month before I started showing, and I wore a white dress and smiled for the cameras and pretended I wasn't dying inside. At the banquet, Damien's former fiancé stood up and accused me in front of everyone. "She's a slut," she said, her voice ringing through the hall. "Sleeping with her own brother. Disgusting." Damien defended me. Vivian and Richard defended me. They cut all business ties with that family and threw her out of the banquet. And I stood there, pregnant, married, and broken. And I felt nothing. After the wedding, I couldn't stand Damien's touch. Every time he reached for me, I flinched. Every time he came near, I backed away. But he was relentless. Flowers every day, breakfast in bed, notes left on my pillow telling me he loved me, begging me to give him a chance. He pursued me like I was something precious, something worth fighting for, and slowly, against every instinct I had, I started to soften. I started accepting him. I slept soundly in his arms, woke up to him making me breakfast. I also started to love the baby. I felt it move for the first time when I was 4 months along a small flutter, like butterfly wings against my ribs, and something cracked open inside me that had been frozen for so long. I started preparing the house for the baby's arrival. I bought tiny onesies and soft blankets and a crib that I assembled myself while Damien watched from the doorway with an expression I couldn't read. I let him feel the baby kick. I smiled at him sometimes, genuine smiles, and I thought maybe this could work. Maybe we could find a way to be a family. Maybe the past could stay in the past. But Damien couldn't stand it. Looking back, I should have seen the sign. The way his jaw tightened when I talked about the baby. The way his eyes darkened when I spent hours in the nursery instead of with him. He wanted all of my attention, and the baby was taking too much of it. At 6 months pregnant, I lost the baby. The doctors said it was a complication, a tragedy. These things happen. I believed them. I didn't know that Damien had made an arrangement that he had poisoned my food, little by little, until my body couldn't hold on to the life inside me anymore. I didn't know that he had killed our baby because he was jealous of the love I had for our own child. When I woke up from the surgery and they told me my baby was gone, I screamed until my voice gave out. I cried until there were no tears left. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I stopped being anything but a hollow shell of grief, rocking back and forth in the dark, whispering to a baby who would never come. Damien stayed with me through all of it. He held me when I cried. He brought me soup and sat with me until I ate it. He stayed up all night when I couldn't sleep, just sitting beside me, holding my hand. He told me we would try again. He told me he loved me. He told me everything would be okay. I believed him. I believed him because I had nothing left to believe in except him. Vivian and Richard were sorry too. They visited often, their faces drawn with grief, sad because my life had turned out like this, first the forced marriage, then the loss of the baby I had started to love. They didn't know the truth. None of us did. Over the next year, I slowly started to heal. I let Damien hold me at night. I let him kiss me. I started to believe that maybe we could have a real marriage, that maybe the baby's death had brought us closer, that maybe this was just a tragic love story with a happy ending waiting somewhere down the line. We lived like newlyweds, happy, comfortable, almost normal. I would wait for him to come home from work. We would cook dinner together. We would watch movies on the couch with my head on his shoulder. I thought I loved him. I thought I had accepted him. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, I asked him not to use protection. I looked into his eyes and told him I wanted a baby not to replace the one we lost, but because I truly loved him now and I wanted to build a family with him. His face went strange. "You're still young," he said. "You need to care for your body. We can have a baby when you're fully healthy." I believed him. I thought he was being caring, thoughtful, protective. I didn't know that he thought I was only sleeping with him for the baby, that he didn't believe I loved him at all. Then I saw Mateo. He told me he was back in the city, that he wanted to meet me once. When I saw him, he was the same but sadder. He looked at me with those kind eyes and told me he needed to tell me something important. He told me he had uncovered the truth, that Damien had drugged me, that Damien had arranged everything, that everything had been carefully planned by him to destroy my happiness. At first, when I came with you, I knew something was wrong because he was not looking at you like a sister, but I didn't take it seriously, Mateo said. When I saw you that night, I was heartbroken. I didn't think about any possibility. But later, after leaving, I kept thinking, how did it happen? Then I investigated, and I found out it was all Damien. I'm sorry, Elena. I didn't protect you. I couldn't breathe. Listening to all this, everything inside me started collapsing again. Damien appeared out of nowhere. He must have followed me, must have been watching, and he grabbed my arm and dragged me away from Mateo. I fought him. I screamed at him. When we got home, I confronted him, and I watched his face as he said yes. Yes, he drugged me. Yes, he destroyed Caleb's family. Yes, he arranged everything. Why? I screamed. Why did you destroy my life? Because I love you, he said. Like that explained everything. I told him I was leaving. I would never stay with a monster. I could never be with someone who could be like this. He locked me in our room. He pinned me to the bed. He claimed me all night long while I cried and begged. And he told me that if I would only stay if we had a baby, then we would have a baby. He didn't listen to my screams. He didn't care about my tears. He took and took and took. And in the morning, I was locked in that room with nothing but the memory of his hands and my own shattered reflection in the mirror. When Vivian and Richard came to visit and found me broken, crying, locked in my room like an animal, they collapsed. Vivian held me while I sobbed. Richard confronted Damien, his voice shaking with rage, and for the first time, I think he truly saw what his son had become. They took me to their home. They got me treatment. They kept Damien away from me. But he came every day anyway, begging outside my window, crying, promising to change. He said he did all of those things because he loved me, because he knew I couldn't accept him otherwise, because he was terrified of losing me. He looked so broken, so desperate, so unlike the monster who had pinned me down and taken what he wanted. I compromised. I told him I would accept him, but he had to change. I said I loved him now and I did, and I would leave the past in the past. We would start over. We would be happy. He was happy. So happy. Life after that was pretty good. We didn't argue. He loved me endlessly. He would cling to me tightly, afraid I would leave. But he couldn't believe that I truly loved him. He kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, kept testing me, kept pushing to see if I would break. At first, when his secretary came to pick up some documents, I didn't think much of it and asked him who she was. He told me she was his secretary, just someone who worked for him. He looked at me that day like he had found something interesting. He started bringing his secretary to our home every morning to pick up documents, but he watched my face carefully every time she walked through the door, waiting for jealousy to flicker across my feature. When it didn't, he let her stay longer. On weekends, he would lock himself in his study with her for hours, the door closed, and I would bring them meals and ask if she wanted to stay for dinner, because I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know he was trying to make me jealous. I thought she was just his employee, but I saw her giving me a strange look. She started comfortably coming and going out of his study even when Damien wasn't home. She stopped greeting me, but I didn't think much of it because I thought Damien loved me, and I loved him too. I was too naive. One day, I saw her stumble on the stairs and fall against him. They were so close, her body pressed against his hands on her waist to steady her, and then she kissed him. He didn't pull away. He just stood there, letting her lips touch his. He was looking at her, then his eyes turned to me. He looked up at me, where I stood on the landing above them. I turned around and walked away. I wasn't jealous. I was hurt, but I didn't scream or cry or confront him because I had learned somewhere along the way that my feelings didn't matter, that if I loved him, I had to accept everything about him. I thought maybe he had finally gotten bored and fallen out of love with me. Damien left with her that day. He didn't come home for 2 days. I waited by the phone, hoping he would call, but he didn't. I didn't call him either because I thought he needed space, because I thought I was being a good wife by giving him freedom. Maybe this was the end of us. So I made up my mind to end it cleanly. When he finally came home, I was packing my thing. "What are you doing?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt something inside me finally break free. "Let's get divorced," I said. "If you've fallen out of love with me, let's end this cleanly. This relationship has been a mess from the beginning anyway." He thought I was jealous. He told me he just let her kiss him because he wanted to see my reaction, to know if I loved him. He tried to coax me, to reassure me, to pull me into his arms. I pushed him away. "If you fell out of love, just say so," I said. "I won't force you to stay." Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Damien grabbed it before I could. I saw his face change when he read the name on the screen, Mateo, and his eyes went darker than I had ever seen them. "You want to leave me because he showed up," Damien said, his voice low and dangerous. "You're going to go to him after divorcing me." "No," I said. "That's not. If we had a baby, you would stay, right?" His voice was shaking now, unhinged. "If I knew it would end up like this, I would never have let you miscarry that baby." The world stopped. "What did you say?" My voice came out as a whisper. His face went pale, like he hadn't meant to say it out loud. But it was too late. "Did you let that happen?" I asked. "Was that you?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, "Yes, I let you miscarry. Because you were fussing over that baby like it was something precious. I wanted that love. I wanted all of you. I couldn't believe you were only with me because of the baby. You loved the baby more than me. So I did what I had to do. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see. I couldn't feel anything except the gaping hole where my baby used to be. The baby I had loved. The baby I had prepared for. The baby I had mourned for months. While the man who killed it held me and told me everything would be okay. I slapped him. "That was your baby too." I screamed. "How could you do that? How could you kill our own child?" He tried to pull me into his arms. "It's okay, baby. Let's have as many babies as you want. We can stay together. We can raise them together." When he touched me, I gagged. I bent over and threw up on the floor, my body rejecting him completely, and when I looked up, his face was twisted with rage and hurt. "You're disgusted by me," he said. "No, you can't be. We have a lifetime together. You love me. You said you loved me. I cried, then really cried, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and broken. I wanted to have a family when I was in the orphanage, I sobbed. When I was adopted, I was so happy. I had a mom and a dad and a brother who loved me. I thought I could be with Caleb and have a complete family of my own, but he fell for someone after leaving the country. Then I met Mateo, whom I loved dearly, but you plotted against me. You drugged me. At first, I couldn't take it because I loved Mateo and didn't have any feelings for you. But I also couldn't be with him not after seeing the look on his face when he saw me in bed with you. I was disgusted with myself. But when I learned I was pregnant, at first I didn't want it, but later I accepted it because I wanted to believe in this. I wanted to believe in us. And even when I learned you did all those things drugging me, destroying Caleb's family, I still wanted to believe in you because I loved you at that time. But now I see you getting close to your secretary, and I'm asking for a divorce not because of Mateo, not because of jealousy, but because I accepted that you fell out of love with me. If you love someone, you let them go. You want their happiness, but you never loved me. It's all obsession, all possessiveness. You said you got close to her and let her kiss you because you wanted to see my reaction. That's not love. That's obsession. That's possessiveness. And you don't love me. Even if I reacted, you would keep testing me in the future just to be satisfied that I loved you. And when I asked to have a baby, that was because I loved you, because I truly fell for you, not because I couldn't get over that baby. But you killed it. You killed our baby. That was your blood. How could you? I was thrashing now, screaming, crying, and he clung to me, sobbing, refusing to let go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me. I fainted. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed with Vivian and Richard beside me. They didn't let Damien near me. I told them I wanted a divorce. I wanted to leave the country. I couldn't take it anymore. I had lost my baby, and I still couldn't believe I had slept beside him after losing that baby, trusting him, believing in him, while he had been the one who destroyed everything. Damien didn't agree to the divorce. Even after Richard punished him again, even after Vivian begged him to let me go, he refused. He begged to see me. He showed up at my door every day, haggard and wounded, his body covered in fresh lashes. One day, I let him in. I looked at him, this man I had called brother, this man I had married, this man who had killed my baby, and I asked him to sign the divorce paper. He refused. He said he would change. He said he would never let his obsession cloud his love again. He begged on his knees, tears streaming down his face. Damien, I said, I'm pregnant. 2 months along. He scrambled on his knees, his eyes wild with hope. Baby, we're having a baby. No, I said. It's my baby. It's never yours. Divorce me and leave. He clung to me. He wouldn't let go. And something inside me snapped. I started screaming. I couldn't stop. I screamed at him to give my other baby back. Asked him why he killed my baby. Told him I would never forgive him. I told him he had killed my only baby, and now he wanted this one too, but I wouldn't let him. It was only mine. I hated him. I hated him to death. The nurses rushed in. Vivian and Richard grabbed me, trying to calm me down. I broke the glass beside my bed and pointed the shard at my throat, screaming so loudly that the whole floor must have heard me. If you don't leave me, I will die. I screamed. I hate you. You killed my baby. Look at what you've done to me. Damien finally saw the damage he had done to me, and he finally broke. Richard slapped him across the face and told him to sign the divorce papers. With shaking hands, crying, Damien signed. The nurses sedated me. They told Vivian and Richard not to let anything near me that might trigger my emotions. I left the city. Vivian and Richard came with me. They chose me in the end, chose the daughter, who had never been their blood, over the son who shared their name. We stayed in a villa near the beach. Slowly, I started to heal. I focused on the baby growing inside me, the baby who was mine and only mine, and I built a new life out of the ruins of the old one. I gave birth to a baby boy. Healthy. Perfect. After the birth, I was resting in my hospital bed, still groggy from the anesthesia, when I heard footsteps I had known my whole life. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move, but I felt someone pick up my hand. Then, tears fell on my skin. I'm sorry, Damien whispered. If we had that baby, he would be 3 years old now. I regret it. I regret making you miscarry. I'm sorry. Then he left. When I finally woke up, Vivian was holding Leo, and Richard was speaking to the nurse. When they saw my eyes open, they smiled, truly smiled for the first time after everything that had happened. They brought my son to me. I held him against my chest and breathed in his scent. I named him Leo, because he would be strong in ways his mother never got to be. Life after that was quiet, peaceful. Vivian and Richard stayed with me, helping me raise Leo, watching him grow. I never asked about Damien, but I knew he was watching. Sometimes I would see him at the edge of the property, standing in the shadows, watching Leo play. Leo would stop, stare at him, then run back to me. One day, I asked him, Leo, do you want to see your dad? You can go with Grandpa and Grandma. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No. I'll stay with Mom. He knew, and that was enough. I was enough. I am.
Damien's POV. I remember the day I lost her, even though I never really had her to begin with. I was 14 years old when I walked into that orphanage, bored and resentful, ready to hate whatever stranger my parents forced into our family. I had plans, friends, a life that didn't include some little girl calling me brother. Then I saw her. She was sitting on the floor, surrounded by children who were gathered around her like she was the sun and they were planets orbiting her light. She was telling a story, something about a dragon who ate vegetables, and she was using her hands to show how big the dragon's wings were, and everyone was laughing. Her hair was messy, her clothes were too big, and she was missing a tooth on the bottom row. And then she looked up and saw me. She smiled. Not a polite smile, not a rehearsed orphan smile, a real one. Wide and bright, and so full of joy that it cracked something open inside my chest that I didn't even know existed. Her eyes crinkled. Something shifted in me that day. Something I wouldn't understand for years. I told myself I was just being a good brother. I taught her to ride a bike. I helped her with homework. I read her bedtime stories. I spoiled her because she deserved everything good in the world, and I wanted to be the one to give it to her. I sat in her doorway at night and watched her breathe, just to make sure she was still there, and I told myself that's what older siblings did. But when she was 15, I saw her sitting too close to her benchmate, laughing at something he said, and something hot and ugly curled in my stomach. I wanted to tear that boy away from her. I wanted to hurt him. I told myself it was protectiveness. I didn't know it was love. I didn't know it was obsession. I didn't know the difference, and by the time I learned, it was too late. When she was 17, I watched Caleb hand her flowers at her graduation. I watched her blush. I watched her smile at him like he had hung the moon. That smile belonged to me. That blush belonged to me. She belonged to me. I watched him drop her at our gate, watched them exchange words from the garden. I destroyed him. I used my father's name, my family's money, every connection I had, and I bankrupted his family so completely that they had nothing left. I thought she would leave him. I thought she would see that he was weak, that he couldn't protect her, that he wasn't worthy of her. But she chased him to the airport. She told him she loved him. She promised to wait. I couldn't let that happen. So I found a woman beautiful, ambitious, willing to play a role for the right price, and I placed her in Caleb's path. She stood by him when he had nothing. She held his hand through the hard times. And when Elena finally saw them together, when she came back crying, I held her and comforted her and felt nothing but satisfaction. I let her go abroad because I thought distance would make her forget him. I thought she would come back and finally see me. Instead, she came back with Mateo. Blue eyes, gentle hands, a ring on her finger that should have been mine. I hugged her and called her my sister, and inside, I was burning alive. When she came to me, grinning the way she always did, and said, "Brother, you have to support me," something inside me snapped. When our parents wanted to get them engaged, I couldn't let it happen. I couldn't let her marry someone else, so I drugged her. I took what I had wanted for years. I told myself it was love. I told myself she would understand eventually. I told myself 1,000 lies, and I believed every single one of them. When our parents found us, I defended her. I said she was drugged, that she had no choice, that she was innocent. I was protecting her, I told myself. I was being a good brother. I was being a good husband, even though she wasn't my wife yet. When Mateo told her he wouldn't mind and said it was okay, that he wouldn't wrong her, I was afraid for a moment that she would accept and leave with him. But my Elena didn't. She was so guilty that she turned him down. I was relieved. When Mom and Dad wanted to get us engaged, I finally felt alive and happy. I thought I would spend the rest of my life with my Elena. But no. When she came to me, begging me not to accept the engagement. "Brother, don't accept this. I don't have feelings for you. I can't see you like that." I couldn't take it. I pinned her in my study and claimed her. I told her she belonged to me, her love, her body, everything about her was mine. She cried and begged me to stop, and I didn't. I couldn't. I was too far gone. I told her how she loved it that day, how she clung to me and asked for more. I made her remember everything, or so I thought. But she wanted to leave, so I locked her up. She fought with me and tried to flee. When she fell down the stairs, I thought I had killed her. I sat in that hospital waiting room for hours, shaking, praying to a God I didn't believe in, begging for her to wake up. When she did, when I learned she was pregnant, I thought God was on my side. I thought the baby would make her stay. I thought everything would be okay. But when she woke up, there was no joy in her eyes, only emptiness, only grief. My parents said she could abort if she wanted. I shouted at them. My father whipped me with 100 lashes, and I took every single one of them because I deserved them, but also because I thought my suffering would make her see how much I loved her. She accepted the marriage. She agreed to keep the baby. I was so happy, so sure that she was finally mine. But I couldn't accept that she didn't love me and only loved the baby and was staying with me because of the baby. After the baby died, after I killed our baby because I couldn't stand her loving someone more than me, something changed in her. She became hollow, broken. And I stayed with her through all of it, holding her, caring for her, because I thought that would make her love me. I thought if I was there for her in her darkest moment, she would finally see that I was the only one who truly understood her. She started to love me. I know she did. I could see it in her eyes, feel it in her touch, hear it in her voice when she said my name. For 1 year, we were happy, truly happy. Then she asked for a baby, and I thought she was only with me because of the baby. I thought she didn't really love me. I thought she was using me to replace the child I had killed. So I told her no. I told her she wasn't ready. That she had to be healthy. That we had time. Because I was too blind to see that she was offering me exactly what I had always wanted, her love. When Mateo came back and told her the truth, I dragged her away. I locked her in our room. I claimed her again and again, punishing her for saying that she would leave me, because I was terrified of losing her. I didn't care that she was crying. I didn't care that she was begging. I only cared that she was mine. When my parents took her away, I begged at her door every day. I told her I would change. I told her I was sorry. And she forgave me. She said she loved me. She said she would leave the past in the past. I was so happy, so sure that everything would be okay. But I couldn't believe that she loved me. I kept testing her. I brought my secretary to our home, hoping to see jealousy. I let her kiss me, hoping to see rage. I wanted Elena to fight for me the way I would have fought for her. I wanted her to scream and cry and claw my eyes out for looking at another woman. Instead, she asked for a divorce, and in that moment I lost everything. I told her the truth about the baby, about how I had killed our child, and I watched her break. I watched the light leave her eyes. I watched her pick up a shard of glass and point it at her own throat, and I finally understood what I had done. I had loved her so much that I had destroyed her. I had turned her from someone lively into someone hollow, devastated, and broken. I signed the divorce papers with shaking hands, crying like a child, and I watched her leave. She didn't look back. She never looked back. When she gave birth to Leo, I went to the hospital. I stood over her while she slept. I held her hand and cried like a broken man. I apologized to a woman who couldn't hear me. I told her I regretted everything. I regret killing our baby, regret hurting you. Then I left. I watched them from a distance after that. I stood in the shadows and watched Leo grow, watched him take his first steps, watched him learn to run, watched him play in the garden with his mother. He had her face, her smile. But he had my eyes and my hair. He was a version of both of us, the best parts of both of us. And I had thrown away the chance to be his father. Sometimes Mom and Dad would visit me. They would bring photos and videos of Leo, and sometimes of Elena too. Elena laughing, Elena holding Leo, Elena looking happy in a way she never looked when she was with me. Mom would cry while watching me look at those photos, watching me stand in the shadows of my own family, watching me waste away with regret. If I hadn't wronged her, if I hadn't killed that baby, if I had just believed her when she said she loved me, maybe we would be a happy couple now. Maybe Leo would know his father. Maybe Elena would smile at me the way she smiles at him. But I destroyed all of that. I destroyed her. I destroyed us. And now all I can do is watch from the shadows, loving her from a distance, knowing that I am the villain of her story, and that I deserve to be. I remember the day I lost her. But more than that, I remember the day I found her. She was 10 years old, sitting on a cold floor, surrounded by children who loved her, telling a story about a friendly dragon. She looked up at me with those bright eyes and that crooked smile. Later, she would follow me everywhere, calling me brother. And for one perfect moment, before I ruined everything, I was the luckiest boy in the world. The end.
Thank you for listening to Moonlit Love Novella. Please like, subscribe, and share. This is the original story of Moonlit Love Novella.